Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar on best practices of TVET centers amid the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to thank our distinguished panelists who joined us from different regions of the OIC for accepting our invitation and designating time to participate in this important webinar. Also, I would like to extend my deep thanks and appreciation to everyone who is watching our live stream today and whoever is going to watch the recording later. Let me introduce myself first. I am Onur Çağlar, the Acting Director of Training and Technical Cooperation Department at CESRIC. I am honored and humbled to moderate this webinar today. Without further ado, I would like to give floor to Mr. Fadi Farasin, Assistant Director General of CESRIC, to deliver his welcoming remarks. The floor is yours, Mr. Farasin.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am pleased to welcome you all to CESRIC webinar on best practices of TVET centers amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we are delighted to bring together 4 distinguished high-level representatives of the national technical and vocational education and training authorities from different regions of the OIC. On behalf of CESRIC, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to them for accepting our invitation to contribute to this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, in response to the pandemic, and since February 22, 193 countries have chosen to shut down educational institutions in an attempt to slow down the transmission of COVID-19. These closures have affected approximately 1.7 billion learners. The education sector in OIC member countries have been hit particularly hard by the pandemic, putting more than 400 million learners out of education. According to a joint survey conducted by ILO, UNESCO, and the World Bank, this unprecedented situation is affecting learning at all levels, including technical and vocational education and training, and causing disruptions in the provision of training. Within the framework of the Vocational Education and Training Program for the member states of the OIC VET, we as CESRIC decided to conduct this webinar with a view to facilitating a platform where TVET policymakers and stakeholders can share their expertise on the current situation and how to overcome the emerging challenges facing the education sector in general and TVET institutions in particular. Building bonds of solidarity through knowledge exchange and sharing of expertise during these difficult times is needed more than ever before to tackle the challenges faced by the OIC member countries and the world at large. Therefore, we hope that this webinar would provide insight on how to cope with the impacts of COVID-19 on TVET systems and would explore the capabilities of TVET centers in supporting the national emergency response policies of their home countries. Furthermore, it would offer collaboration possibilities towards the achievement of the OIC TVET strategic roadmap. Before concluding, I would like to thank you all once again and wish you a fruitful exchange of experience and productive discussions that can hopefully inspire other OIC TVET institutions that are working hard to adjust to the new norms. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farasin, for your welcoming remarks. As you may all know, the outbreak of the novel coronavirus since late last year has disrupted the social and economic order in the OIC member countries and the world at large. The impact varied dramatically across sectors, and we can see that the education sector and the labor market weren't any exception. However, some OIC member countries managed to tackle the emerging challenges by utilizing noticeable resources to develop strategies at the national level to deal with this global pandemic. Today, we are going to listen from our valuable panelists, joining us from Jordan, Malaysia, Nigeria, and Turkey, respectively, with extensive expertise in the technical and vocational education and training sector, who are going to share with us their country's best practices and how their centers manage to tackle these difficulties and keep their systems going during these difficult times. Before we start the discussions, I would like to kindly remind our viewers to submit their questions to the panelists via YouTube channel or CESRIC's relevant social media platforms, and we will try to address as many as possible during our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Now, please allow me to briefly introduce our first panelist, Mr. Ziad Ahmet Obeidat, Director General of the Vocational Training Corporation in Jordan. Mr. Obeidat currently holds the position of Director General at the Vocational Training Corporation of Jordan. Besides, he carries several executive roles at the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation and at the Ministry of Labor in Jordan. His areas of expertise include contributions to the national development plans, project management, monitoring, evaluation, and appraisal of international, regional, national, and sectoral initiatives. Mr. Obeidat, thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, friends, brothers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please allow me to thank CESRIC and you for inviting us to this great event, the webinar, and my pleasure to be with you today. By holding this event, it will give us an opportunity to share Jordan experience and to see others' experience from the CESRIC members in TVET sectors and how we cope with COVID-19 and distance learning. My presentation will cover the following. Please, the first slide. Yeah, the second slide, please. Yes, please. It will cover the preparation and the strategy plan, the key outcomes, and the way forward. The next slide, please. Yeah, as you know, I'm representing Jordan through the VTC, Vocational Training Corporation. I'm the Director General for that. And allow me first to give a brief about the VTC in Jordan. That's the main government training provider and very important in the Jordan economy by providing labor skills with that's needed to the Jordan market. The VTC established in 1976 and to establish and develop SMEs, train and prepare qualified and competitive skills labor in different sectors, implementing and assist training programs in accordance with the highest quality standards, training in the field of health and safety. And according to that, we established 38 VTC centers or institutes in the country, covers the 12 governorates with 350 training workshops and the over 100 training programs we host, and mainly in tourism, plumbing, electronics, and that's the top demand for that. The other things, our program are gender balanced with 30% female, 70% male. And VTC, the yearly enrollment in the VTC centers, it's about 400,000 Jordanian students. And the average of the employment rate per training programs, it's a different. Sometimes it's reach 70, sometimes it reach 90, 95%. It depends about the programs and the subjects we train on it. The other things, next slide, please. I will talk about the phases we went through the training distance for the last 3 months. We started early by the end of February 2020, and we prepare a roadmap for to go through the distance learning. And you know, the COVID-19 this year put us on a pressure to move forward and to move quickly. We did a research and monitor change in the COVID-19, assessed which training to be made available, and decided on the level of information to be delivered. By the way, we started first by doing a piloting for one of the majors. Then we spread that onto the other sectors. Ensure readiness of the IT infrastructure and availability of funding, generate demand for online training, and attract trainees, ensure availability and readiness of teachers and trainers. And this is the response. I think this is very important. We move to a next stage. We prepare the training content and creating the platform. We used actually what's available through the internet. It was all of it free. We used Google Classrooms, Zoom, Microsoft, and we used the Microsoft Teams. We select qualified trainers, teachers who are professional in using the technology. Then we found that the response rate from the trainers, I mean the student, it was 85%. And this was a surprised us. 15%, they refused to change the online distance learning. Maybe it's lack of the internet, lack of using the technology. They don't want to join the program through the distance. They don't believe in that. Maybe this is what we found during our evaluation for the distance learning on VTC. And I think this is a lesson learned for us, and this is the feedback we get from our trainers. At the same time, we had a monitoring and evaluation system. We don't just went to the training program without having a monitoring and evaluation system. And this was very important to get the feedbacks from the trainers, the teachers, from the students, the trainees, and the others who engage for the program. And what we used during the training, we used that's the presentations, the training content. We used videos, we used virtual reality, and we focus actually more in soft skills. But why we focused for that? Because we saw that it's really needed for the students to enroll in the labor market, to have skills like soft skills needed on that. During, next slide, please. Next slide. During the period from March to June, we targeted around like 6,000 students. The response, it was 5,500, which means around 80% engaged in the program distance learning. Over 70 training programs introduced by distance learning through VTC, and this was very important, which means the whole programs mostly they were introduced into distance learning. The other things, the engagement from the trainers, the teacher. We engaged 370 trainers or participated in the preparation of the programs and delivering the programs. Online, also we introduced online evaluation and exams. It was a successful, and this was something new for VTC, because most of the exams we did it on site actually, but now we can do it online. And the key forward for that, we will continue improving, enhancing the doing the exams online for theoretical part, not for the practical part. Because in VTC, we have two parts, theoretical part and the practical part. The other things, now we have a data and information is available for per governorate and region. This is one of the key outcome from the distance learning. The other things, you know, during the COVID-19, the world, the global world, provide everything free, especially the platforms, the Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and these things. And this is, it was no cost on it. And we use these available tools, which means no cost for VTC that needed in the COVID-19 in delivering distance learning. And this was very important issue. Please, next slide. What's the key forward? And this is very important. The key forward, I think we will invest in upgrading IT infrastructure, explore innovative solution for online exams, integrate VTC online services with Jordan e-government, because in Jordan we have the e-government services, and this is very important to engage the VTC within the e-government services. To ensure that the services delivering is not compromised, ensure quality assurance measures in place. And now we have a unit in VTC established for quality assurance measurements. And this was very important to carry out the training or to receive the feedback from them to improve such training in online. Practice training will be start in July. You know, the theoretical part will end by the end of June. Practical training will start in July. The government opened all the sectors 2 days ago, especially for the training centers. Now we are back on the field, but we have to follow a certain measurements in health and safety and these things with the government, and we have to apply something to assure that to manage the COVID-19 in Jordan. The other things, from the lesson learned, we found something interesting on that. The trainees' focus and attention is increased with less effort and time. They were less effort, less time, and also we reduced the operation and the running cost, which means this is very important things to go and to continue in the future doing, maybe for not for the whole programs, but to select some programs to do the distance learning or online learning for the theoretical part, which is around 50 to 60% of the program, and the 40 or the 50% of the program is going to be in the site within our center and institutes. We found something interesting with the new generation, because our customers or trainers, students in the VTC, their age between 16 to 18, they are better coping with the new technology. And they learn it fast. And this is something really was watched. For the future also, we look for to exchange the experience with the CISRIC in the field of distance training, and training of trainers and supervisors, engagement with the private sector institution to work in developing models that will enable trainees learn online and work at the same time, and introduce more technological parts or tools into VTC to support this distance learning. And this is what we did. It's still, I think we need to evaluate again by the end of our program, distance learning, to see what's the findings and what kind of recommendation we should move for it. And thank you for your listening and patience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obeidat, for your enlightening presentation, and congratulations for the great success of your institution. To summarize VTC's best practices, we can say that your institution has successfully implemented distance education through different digital platforms, conducted electronic tests, exams, and also you provided virtual reality and augmented reality systems in some locations, and supporting them with monitoring and evaluation systems. Moreover, automated curricula and qualified trainers who are professional in using technology and high response of trainees to distance learning are amongst the success factors of Jordan's TVET and skill development system in tackling the negative effects of current crisis. We all know that we need to demonstrate solidarity and enhance cooperation more than ever before to tackle the challenges towards TVET systems posed by pandemic. I am pleased to highlight that as CESRIC, we are ready to support and supplement OIC member states' efforts to overcome the current challenges and limitations faced in the area of training and technical education due to the pandemic. Now, let me introduce Mrs. Hafitza Binti Omar, our second panelist today. She is the Principal Assistant Director of TVET Division from the Ministry of Education from Malaysia. Mrs. Omar's scope of work is mainly on curriculum and TVET program development, as well as quality assurance and program accreditation. She has been actively participating in the development of TVET diploma programs and has been involved in Vocational Education Transformation Committee, Vocational College Task Force Committee, National TVET Empowerment Technical Committee, and TVET Single Accreditation Technical Committee. Mrs. Ömer, we are ready to listen to your valuable presentation. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. The floor is yours. Mrs. Ömer, could you please unmute yourself? Yes, thank you so much.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chagla. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank CESRIC for hosting this meaningful webinar, and also for inviting Malaysia to participate. It is also a pleasure to be here with other honorable panelists in sharing the best practices of TVET centers amid COVID-19. And for today, I'm sharing with you the Malaysian experience in facing the pandemic COVID-19 with regards to the management of TVET centers under the Ministry of Education Malaysia. So my presentation would start with the government action in dealing with this pandemic in general. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right. Okay, in order to manage the pandemic, our government has introduced a control system, which is referred as Movement Control Order, and MCO. It is a preventive measure by the government of Malaysia in response to COVID-19, and It is a strategy to prevent the people from being exposed to the virus through daily contact. And for this MCO, we have 6 phases altogether, which starts with phase 1, which is beginning 18th March, and it goes on until phase 6, which is we're having it now. And all the actions taken by the government in managing this pandemic is actually a work of all ministries of health, ministry of and the hang on. So it is by the Ministry of Health and also the national hang on, I cannot see the national. So there are 3 phases of MCO, I'm sorry, which started from 18 March, and the phase 1 until phase 4 in general is a prohibition of mass movements and gatherings across the country, including religions, sports, social and cultural activities, including closure of kindergartens, government and private schools, as well as public and private higher education institutions and skill training institutes. The only exception is essential services, which among others, inclusive of water, electricity, energy, telecommunications, postal, transportation, oil and gas, broadcasting, retail, and food supply. And during the phase 5, it is the conditional MCO, whereby the government opens the economy in a controlled manner. However, social gatherings are still not allowed. And in phase 6, it is a recovery movement control order, or RMO. And here, in this phase, movements of certain religious activities are allowed under control, and schools reopen. And actually, in Malaysia, the schools are reopened yesterday on the 24th of June, 2020. Next slide, please. Okay, the next is about the planning of schooling period post-COVID-19. Okay, the first steps taken by the Ministry of Education Malaysia is to develop a guideline on school management post-COVID. And with having this school guideline, the Ministry of Education has actually worked closely with the Ministry of Health and National Security Council, NSC, in drafting the guideline. And the guideline focusing on giving all the teachers, the schools, the outlines, preparations that schools must undertake before school reopens. And the guideline also explains the roles and safety measures to be taken by teachers, administrative staff, and students. So this guideline is actually to be referred to by the schools before or prior to the opening of schools. And the next stage is actually in this phase, which is the MCO Phase 6. This is the stage where the reopening of schools. So schools actually reopened yesterday on 24th June 2020 within the precautions and the precaution measures and actions taken in order to face this school reopening is also based on the advice and regulations by the Ministry of Education and the National Security Council. So prior to 24th June, simulations of school operations post-MCO were done in selected schools. For these simulations, it's actually to make sure that the schools are actually prepared and ready and abide to the guidelines given, and the simulations and the were done by the at the ministerial levels, where we actually the representatives from the ministry actually went to schools, to the selected schools, to monitor the readiness of the schools. Okay, so yesterday schools actually started with the secondary schools, people from Form 5 and Form 6 at the age of 17, at the age of 17 and the age of 18. And we also had vocational colleges for the students of certificate level 2 and diploma level 2 actually started yesterday. And for other levels of the students, they will return or they will come back to school by stages. And for this group, home-based learning still continue. Next slide. Okay, so in preparing the readiness of schools and TVET centers, MOE has been having engagements with relevant stakeholders for inputs, insights, and advice prior to making key decisions regarding the procedure and management of schools or vocational colleges during this challenging period. So after having engagements with the stakeholders, MOE has delivered standard operation procedures on COVID-19 and FAQ or frequently asked questions for MCO period and post-MCO, and also home-based learning initiatives. So in altogether, everybody has actually adopted and adapt to the new norm way of life. As for this, Ministry of Education, the schools and vocational colleges carry out campaigns to enhance awareness on safety measures that students need to practice regularly, which is they need to embrace this new form way of life in practicing social distancing, washing hands, maintain cleanliness, and avoiding crowds. Okay, so the biggest effort that has been taken by the Ministry of Education in order to ensure the smoothness of the reopening of the schools, Ministry of Education has set up special task force to monitor the reopening of schools or vocational colleges. Okay, and this special task force, which is set up actually to monitor and assist the schools in criteria such as the readiness, the health and safety of the teachers and students, and the teachers and students attendance to the school, and all of these criteria, the data which is collected from the schools are being actually reported in a dashboard which is controlled by the team at the ministerial level. Okay, so this task force operating every day to monitor the progress reports on the management of schools and vocational colleges, and this progress report will be updated daily to the education minister himself. Next. Next one, please. Okay, and for TVET centers under the Ministry of Education, we have actually 85 vocational colleges. And for these vocational colleges, the first thing that we make sure that they practice safety of facilities and surroundings for the TVET centers. Okay, so for these vocational colleges, they need to adhere to all COVID-19 standard operating procedures by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, and they should actually have engagements with stakeholders to carry out necessary precautions and actions. And as you can see in the slide, we make sure that at the TVET centers, for the entrance, the main entrance, we need to have one station for sanitization, meaning to say that everybody that will come during the day to the college or to the center, they need to have proper sanitization. And even though to enter to the labs, they will need also to have proper sanitization spot, which everybody should be practicing this new norm. And as you also can see, schools are responsible to actually give briefings on this new norm to the security guards as well, so that everybody will practice and will understand the same input in order to embrace this new norm. And regarding these stakeholders, the schools or the colleges, they have engagement with fire department and the sanitizing services prior to the reopening, to ensure that all the facilities and surroundings are being sanitized by professionals. And also, if you can see that that is one example of the social distancing in our lab at the one of the TVET centers. Next. Next, please. Okay, so in terms of program delivery for vocational colleges or our TVET centers, we have actually taken a few approaches in a very critical and short time, preparing to face the new norm after this post-COVID. And the first and foremost, actually, we come out with a new learning structure. Because of all this while, the structure of the system, the schooling system, which is the semester system, has shifted in terms of time, and also the program itself has actually to be tackled wisely. So we actually come out with new learning structure and coming out with a new yearly plan for the TVET centers. And we promote home-based learning for the students, and we also promote home-based learning through the centers to the parents and the students to be practicing home-based learning. And we have online learning videos. In this approach, we have our lecturers to actually recording themselves on videos, and we put the videos on TV programs on national channels, which in this manner we actually involve different ministries. For example, in this case, we have Ministry of Education working with national television stations, and they put all these videos for the students to actually go through to actually have their e-learning program at home. So we also have online learning platforms, which is, we have a lot of online learning platforms even if under MOE as well. You can see there, I have there on the slide, we have Cikgu YouTube, and we have EduWeb TV for the online learning platforms for the students. And we also have advised the centers to actually have flexible assessment methods. When we talk about flexible assessment methods, we are talking about, for example, having online assessment, especially for the theoretical aspects of learning. And we advise the teachers to actually have the small group or individual assessment in terms of practical or on hands-on competencies for the students. Rather than having it in a big group as usual, they have to customize the assessment method to assess the competencies of the students individually or in a small group. And then instead of having conventional exams, students are given quizzes on media social, for example, on email, via WhatsApps. They're having quizzes, and teachers will actually design the quizzes based on the subjects learned by the students, and they have to assess the students and give out the marks via social media. And students also are given chances under this flexible assessment method by presenting their projects online. That means they don't have to go back to the center to actually present their project paper or to present their project work. They can do it online and being assessed by the teachers without having to come to the center. Okay, so the next one, actually, we provide a lot of guidelines for the centers, and we have guideline for assessment, we have guideline for teaching learning, and we have guideline for the conducting of reopening of Tibet centers. So all these guidelines are actually the base that to be referred to by the centers, and to actually help them or assist them in carrying out all the things that are new to them, especially in terms of the assessment methods. Okay, next. And this one, for this way forward, I'm sharing with you regarding the way forward of education planning post-COVID-19. I would like to share some suggestions by our Education Director General, Dr. Habibah Abdul Halim, from the Ministry of Education Malaysia. She shared these suggestions on the 2nd June 2020 during a webinar, a sub-regional webinar conducted by UNESCO Jakarta. And our Education Director General suggests that in education planning post-COVID-19, what we have to be concerned is actually to have a clear policy, ensuring that new policies that derived from the crisis, we have to make sure that the policy that we make is actually be of benefit to the learning process for all students. And our planning also need to have clear communication plans to ensure that students and public receive clear and up-to-date information from the ministry. This is very important in planning because it's always communication breakdown between the ministry and the parents and the society. So education planning post-COVID should actually focus on these communication plans. And we should also have inclusion and equity when we plan the post-COVID education planning. This is to reflect or to reflect on social and economics gaps, which means the planning should actually overcome the social and economic gaps, because when we talk about education planning post-COVID, we talk about e-learning. So when we talk about e-learning, we should remember that there's always digital divide. So that is also a main concern when we do a planning. And also the delivery system, we should actually come up with a good system which actually can be of benefit to the students, not only in urban, but also in rural areas. Okay, and the next point that she has made is actually to have concern on social and emotional support in do the planning, the important role of parents in ensuring students' well-being, safety, and protection. And assessment is also a very important aspect in planning because in the new norm, we need to further enhance formative and school-based assessments as well as e-assessment. And the planning should actually be in participatory approach, which is when we talk about this approach, we talk about it is a combination of inputs, insights, ideas, and from multi-sectoral, for example, across ministries, across across levels, from parents, from public to the minister, in order to actually plan ahead for the post-COVID education planning. So that is all that I have to share today with the panel today, and I hope it is of benefit to everybody or the countries in the OIC members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Omar, for the comprehensive presentation. The adaptation process seems to be well established and the system looks well on track. Congratulations for that. Very inspiring indeed. Again, please allow me to recap briefly on what your institution has achieved. The Ministry of Education worked closely with the Ministry of Health to draft a set of guidelines on schools management and reopening of schools to ensure a smooth transition. Also, an awareness campaign on safety measures were carried out by the Ministry of Education and relevant TVET institutions, and a task force were assigned by the Ministry of Education to monitor the reopening of schools and TVET centers in Malaysia. You also mentioned the importance of developing clear policy and communication plans, social and emotional support to be given to the parents and students, and the participatory approach to response, recovery, and resilience while TVET education planning during post-COVID-19. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ömer, for your comprehensive presentation again. So now, let us listen from Nigeria's experience from our valuable panelists, Dr. Masaudu Adamu Kazaure, the Executive Secretary of the National Board for Technical Education in Nigeria. Dr. Kazaure held various positions throughout his career as an academician, administrator, and executive at many institutions, such as the Polymer Institute of Nigeria, Husseini Adamu Polytechnic and Chemical Society of Nigeria. Besides, he is the Western region representative of the Commonwealth Association of Polytechnics in Africa, comprising Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and the Gambia. Dr. Kazaure, thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Are you hearing me? Thank you. Let me see this opportunity to please the slides, please. Let me see this opportunity to thank you most sincerely for inviting me to share the experience of Nigeria regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, the effect on the TVET sector. Next slide, please. Next slide. I want to inform you that as far back as 2016, the TVET sector in Nigeria commenced the implementation of the open, distance, and flexible learning approach to teaching. And this was informed based on the need to expand access to TVET in view of the large number of secondary school leavers seeking for entrance into the tertiary institutions in the country. Next, please. Next slide, please. The sector honestly cater for up to 50% of those wanting to enroll. As a result, National Board for Technical Education went into partnership with the private organizations toward the success of the project. The highlights of the achievements include setting up of a national open, distance, and flexible e-learning steering committee, and the setting up same in partner institutions. We also did a visitation to some of the institutions to audit and ascertain their readiness for this. That is at that time. Next week. Next slide. So the training and orientation of staff on e-learning, while the trained staff replicated same in the selected TVET institutions across the country. The institutions cascaded them locally as a way of creating awareness on the need to adopt the e-learning. This was held in 2017 and up to 2018. The National Board for Technical Education also partners visited two major indigenous telecommunication giants in Nigeria, that is Globacom and Airtel, to see possibility of partnership in providing needed infrastructure to drive the e-learning. The National Board for Technical developed implementation strategy also, and the National Open Distance Learning and Flexible Learning Policy in collaboration with the Commonwealth of Learning, COL. Next. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the post-COVID-19 measures, the rationale for the ODFEL in TVET sector. With the recent outbreak of the coronavirus in the world, it has become more pertinent that e-learning strategy is needed to help focus resources, including ICT infrastructure, manpower development, and administrative service support. Next slide, please. The key partners for Exchange include increased capacity to maximize the benefits of the current and emerging technologies, allow different modes of delivery, and extending access, especially to girl child through scholarships, increase student expectations of technology, enhance student learning experience, develop new and review existing TVET curricula for national and global relevance using collaborative tools. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Develop new and review existing TVET curricula for national and global relevance using collaborative tools. Provide rich visual learning environment with a range and quality of teaching resources. Assess the resources of an increasingly weighted world. Develop more flexible and accessible ways of working, and provide high quality education for students with a disability. Next slide, please. Still on the COVID-19 measures we are taking is to increase support for student learning, including choice of approach, help with revision and facilitate communication and encourage creativity. Also engage with the wider world through transnational education and program exchange. Next slide, please. Now, next slide, please. Next slide, please. So based on the audit we have done, we have selected some institutions that will certainly be in line with this. So what we did, next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. So what we did, we have selected these institutions with the advent of the COVID-19 and shutting down all institutions in the country. The Federal Ministry of Education directed that all institutions to continue teaching and learning virtually. Consequently, the National Board for Technical trained some selected staff of TVET institution in the use of open and digital resources. Similarly, the board also currently in collaboration with Coveralls of learning and the visual training of staff on the planning and implementation of module LMS, which will be cascaded to other TVET institutions. The National Board of Education also currently collaborating with Cisco in training of over 100 MBT and TVET staff virtually to cybersecurity. The training, which will last for about 30 weeks, commenced recently, and this is especially critical in view of the positioning of virtual learning, which has lots of security challenges. Next slide, please. Currently, various institutions have commenced the engagement of their students virtually through various medium, and the board is working out guidelines that will ensure quality assurance and the standards of teaching and learning. As it is now, that mostly we have not been able to open schools. The government yesterday gave direction that we should remain closed pending further assessment of the situation. But as soon as it's possible, we hope by the end of this week, we get the final direction whether to open schools or not. But we are engaging the students of virtual learning actually. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges we have been facing have been the virtual learning of our institution include internet and local IT infrastructures. As well as tackling the challenges in the interim, the most institutions have commenced using the most common tools, using mobile devices to reach out to the students, since at least 80% of the students have access to these tools and devices. Also, considering the peculiarities of TVET, which involves hands-on training, like the need for simulators that could be used virtually by online students, especially those in the field of engineering. Next slide, please. The way forward is that the board that will explore ways to collaborate with the relevant stakeholders in provision of required infrastructure in the short and long term. This includes provision of cheap and affordable data subscription plans for students and teachers, provision of simulators and other open and proprietary software that will aid teaching and learning in the virtual classroom, especially for engineering students. Training and retraining of TVET teachers using online media in online teaching and learning, and development of new and a review of the existing policies to guide implementation of full blended e-learning. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Once more, thank you for inviting me to share what we are doing in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kazoire, for the informative presentation and sharing with us Nigeria's experience before and during COVID-19 pandemic. So to sum up the National Board for Technical Education's efforts, we can say that you successfully achieved the continuity of teaching and learning through technological means, despite of the closure of all institutions in the country and other infrastructural challenges. The board is currently working on increasing the capacities of the emerging technologies and extending to the access to the available resources, especially for the vulnerable groups. Also, for the way forward, you are working on training TVET instructors to better adapt the online teaching methods, developing simulators that will help practicing hands-on training virtually, and working on the revision and the development of the existing policies and curriculum. We thank you for yet another inspirational presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Kazoire, for your contribution. Now, last but not the least, let us listen to Turkey's experience after a brief introduction of our distinguished panelists, Ms. Şenur Çetin, the Head of Social Partners and Projects Department at the Directorate General for TVET of the Ministry of National Education of Turkey. Mrs. Çetin carried out various positions throughout her career in education sector, such as teacher, education expert, program developer, and other executive roles. Her areas of expertise include development and preparation of projects and protocols for vocational education of various national and international institutions, as well as the preparation of Europass certificate supplement with the Vocational Qualification Authority. After an introduction to be made by Ms. Çetin, the detailed presentation will be delivered by Mr. Mehmet Çiçek, a national education expert at the Directorate General for TVET, Ministry of National Education of Turkey. Ms. Çetin, the floor is yours.
Evet, öncelikle herkesi selamlamak istiyorum. Bu toplantıyı organize ettiğiniz için de SESTİK başta olmak üzere size ve tüm katılımcılara merhaba demek istiyorum.
First of all, I want to say hi to everybody. First, I want to thank to the SESTİK to let us be part of this distinguished webinar.
Covid sürecinde ülkelerin yapmış olduğu çalışmaları dinledik. Biz de bugün sizinle, diğer ülkelerimize, katılımcılarımızla Türkiye olarak ve özellikle de mesleki eğitim okullarımız olarak neler yaptığımızı, bu süreci nasıl yönettiğimizi uzmanımız Mehmet Çiçek arkadaşımız anlatacak.
We have listed the other distinguished panelists and we're very pleased to hear these best practices. And now we want to talk about the Turkish TVET system and what our schools done on this strategic period.
Sunumumuzun sonunda eğer soruları olursa da zevkle sorularını cevaplayabiliriz. Teşekkür ederim.
At the end of presentation, we will be very happy to answer all questions. Thank you very much. Now, if you will let me, I want to start my presentation, please. Next slide, please. So first of all, I want to give some numbers about Turkish TVET system. So we have over million, over almost 1.5 million students, and we have 130,000 teachers and about 3,755 schools. Students, our per classroom is 23, and student per teacher is 11. And our share of vocational education in secondary education is 34%. And we give, education, we present education in 55 fields and 203 branches. Next slide, please. So, first of all, after we closed the schools due to the coronavirus pandemic, we started distance education for whole schools and VET schools as well. So MONE has decided to perform the courses via its online platform, Education Information Network, which we call EBA, and national television channels, Turkish radio and television channel. We cooperate with them so all our students can connect to this platform. In this portal, various learning materials, including curriculum-based videos, documents, ebooks, tests, activities, are provided to stakeholders of education from preschool to high-level schools. Students, teachers, and parents can access more than 5,000 books, 100,000 of documentaries, cartoons in EBA portal. MONE collaborates with the leading GSM operators in Turkey to support the students' access to the EBA online portal. Operator provided internet access to the students up to 8 GB free of charge. Students can use internet access to participate in online courses and other educational activities in EBA portal. So in this EBA portal, actually, we have chance to make a live classroom. So all students are in their classroom, live classroom with the students. So all our teachers, they're almost doing their curricula on the live classes in this portal as well. Next one, please. So what VET done in this coronavirus pandemic period? So besides all our students have their distance education, some our students and some our teachers done a very critical things in this period. Vocational education and training VET have been critical to Turkey's well-being time of coronavirus pandemic. In this context, MONE has activated the production capacity of VET in Turkey, and VET schools has begun to produce the materials to prevent and spread of pandemic. They produce materials and diverse areas from clinic materials to mask production, disposable aprons and overalls, and face protection shields. The R&D studies are also intensified to increase the variety of products produced in VET. The devoted teachers and students of VET have always prioritized the demands of society in such difficult conditions, have activated their production capacity and supported Turkey with their services. Next slide, please. So the first of all, is very important. Cleaning and disinfection materials were very important, and it was a small problem to find on the market. So MONE has focused on the production in VET high schools in order to maintain the hygiene, cleaning, and disinfection works for all of schools within the scope of the coronavirus measures. The products are produced in 100 VET schools. MONE provide the raw material needs of VET high schools and deliver to them the schools. At the present, VET high schools have reached a production capacity to meet all clinic materials need approximately 54,000 of schools in 71 provinces. VET schools have produced 6 million liters of surface disinfection, 400,000 of liters of hand disinfection, and 10,000 liters of cologne so far, which is so important for this in this period. Next one, please. So medical mask is very critical at the moment. I mean, it's gonna be very critical for a long time as well. So the medical mask is almost needed due to coronavirus epidemic. In these days, it's difficult to provide necessary supply of masks and prices are constantly increasing. MONE has taken a quick step in this regard, and the necessary investments have been made to produce medical or surgical masks in 102 vet schools. And the first mask started to be produced. 1 million masks were produced in a very short time and delivered to primarily and high to healthcare workers. The capacity to the product 10 million masks per month has been created. So far, vocational and high schools have produced 30 million masks, and they're all working as well. So monthly, we have 10 million capacity for masks. Next one, please. Disposable materials is very important for the hygiene industry. In this regard, MONE has invested in WET and start to produce such as the disposable gowns and overalls, especially for healthcare workers. Production continues investment almost in all provinces. On the other hand, manufacturing of products such as disposable forks and knives is started in selected pilot schools as well. So West schools have produced 1 million disposable coveralls and gowns to the date and offered them to the healthcare professionals. Next slide, please. In order to contribute to solution of the troubles in the production of face protection shields, which are especially important for the healthcare workers, RD starters have been completed and the production of face protection shields has started. In that school, 500,000 face shields can be produced per month. Face shields are produced both with automated production line and using by 3D printers. In addition, the molds of the face shields are created beyond the 3D printer, and mass production of face shields started in the field of plastic technology of wet high schools. Wet high schools have produced 1 million so far, have produced 1 million face protection shield and presenting to the healthcare professionals. Next one, please. Ventilator is critical important in this period, especially for the hospitals and for the healthcare workers. And it was not easy to find on the market. Even it was not easy to get from other countries and something. So as a result of RD studies in Istanbul and Hatay, we decided to find 2 pilot schools, one in Istanbul, one in Hatay. The first ventilator has produced in a biomedical device technology RD workshop of the wet schools in Hatay. In a short time, another piece of work in context was completed with the works carried out in Istanbul. The second ventilator produced in RD workshop in Istanbul. And this one is more complicated and controlled by mobiles and by computers from the house. So it's very useful for hospitals, even for personnel you can use in your home or your office. Next one, please. To reduce our capacity of masks was important, but machines of masks, fully automatic machines of masks were not easy to find on the market. So RD styles have been going on for the months and have yielded result. Automatic 3-layer wire ultrasonic surgical mask was produced. The machine has started to produce about 100,000 masks per day, which is huge. The machines are produced in Istanbul, and they will be installed in other West schools, and monthly products will reach 10 million surgical masks. So far, it's about 5 or 6 machines, ultrasonic machines are produced, and they give to the other schools, so they start to produce the mask so far. Next one, please. And N95 standard masks is very rarely at the market. It's very important for the healthcare professional, especially, but it's not easy to find it, and when you find it, it's very expensive. For this season, MONE took a very important step while accelerating its production in wet high schools within the scope of coronavirus measures and began the preparation for production to machine that produce masks in 95 standards. I mean, this machine is can make a mass production of the N95 standards mask, and it's very important. So the first machine was developed in April and started mass production already. So the healthcare professionals are very pleased of this because it's easy for them to get N95 standards mask now. Next one, please. Ultraviolet C air sterilization device. This is actually is a robot. In the fight against coronavirus pandemic, in a vocational high school, a robot capable of disinfection hospital environments such as intensive care rooms, elevators, cabins, and corridors with ultraviolet rays was developed. So it's controlled by mobile or by your laptop. So it's easier. Even when it's working, somebody just came in, stop and see, wait for you when you've done your work. And if you go out, start to disinfect again. Thank you. Next one, please. Other RD studies. So RD studies are still going on. So we have pilot schools all around the Turkey, all around the country. So they're working on the RD schools. So some of the examples I want to give you. Ozone air disinfection device, non-contact infrared thermometer, video laryngoscope device, isolated sampling unit, fully equipped intensive care bed, mobile UVC robot sterilization. So this is how it's worked our RD studies actually. So especially the Ministry of Health or healthcare professionals, they demand us for some new things. For example, fully, isolated sampling. It's very critical for healthcare professionals. So they asked to our schools if they can work on this, and it took, not too long. It's about 15 days or 16 days to provide this isolated sampling unit and to give the healthcare professionals. So it's very easy for them to work on these things as well. Next one, please. So all these materials, all these product materials are given free of charge to those in need. How we do that? We have one is as a result of MONO provides all projectors charge of the relevant authorities under coordination the Ministry of Health and Governorship. So we give them free of charge. Another one, we have a project. So the project name is like Best Schools Meet the Families, with the families in need. The cleaning and disinfecting materials, which is very important for them, and surgical masks, have been produced and delivered to the elderly and needy families free charge of in 81 provinces with the condition. So even our school, our students and teacher product these things, they deliver by themselves to these people as well, because they have no chance to go out, and so we delivered them to their house, this cleaning and disinfecting materials and surgical masks, which is very important. And we do this in a periodically every time, so not just one time. So every second week. So our students and teachers working as a team, so they know all address and they know all the same. So they, coordinate with the governorship as well. So in the times they going to their house, they give them and they come back. So another thing is actually next, like last week we start to do it. We start to export our schools productions to the all around the world actually. So we're exporting some of them, and some of them we give them just because of the help. We send all around the country. Is Palestine, United States, UK, all around the world who need these materials. Thank you very much. If you have any question, we will be very pleased to answer.
We greatly appreciate your wonderful presentation, Mr. Çiçek. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing Turkey's TVET Center's great experience. Congratulations for all your efforts in supporting the national emergency response policies through the production of crucial and critical health equipment. So to state the main points that were raised during your presentation, we can say that Turkey also has managed to commence distance education through an online platform, EBA, broadcasted via national television channel. This portal also provided online access to various materials like ebooks, videos, tests, and activities to engage students in this critical term. Most importantly, though was using the production capacity of the TVET centers in the country and facilitating them to manufacture protection equipment such as masks, overalls, cleaning materials, ventilators, and other critical equipment needed in fighting the pandemic. I am also so delighted to hear the success stories and the best practices of TVET centers shared by our valuable panelists representing different regions of the OIC. Thank you all once again, and let us now move on to Q&A session and try to address few questions that we have been receiving through different platforms since the beginning of this live broadcast. For that, I am pleased to give the floor to my colleague, Ms. Semih Abdullah Inan, who has been following the flow of the questions and analyzing them, and I believe she is now ready to direct them to our panelists. Ms. Inan, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Çağlar, distinguished panelists and dear viewers. Thank you very much for your valuable presentations and the best practices that you shared with us throughout the webinar. They are very inspiring indeed. So we have received quite a few questions, and I will try my best to address as many as possible within our time limits. So to summarize the key questions, I will address the first question to our distinguished panelist from Nigeria, Dr. Kazaure. So you mentioned in the way forward of your institution about some plans for training the TVET trainers to adjust to the online teaching methods. Could you please share with us how is this going to be achieved? What are your plans in that regard? I would greatly appreciate if you could.
Thank you very much. Yes, some of the plans that we are going to engage some of the experts in Tibet. I mean, in the ODL learning. We have a collaboration with the Commonwealth of Learning, and we have brought out our policies as usual, you know, and these are the things that we have been using to train the trainers that are going to be training the students online. And we have so far, as you can see from my presentation, started with Cisco and then in May, and we have gone very far. And we are going to continue this even after the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kazaure, once again for your brief answer. I really appreciate it. The second question is directed to Jordan. Mr. Obaidat, how did Jordan succeed in developing electronic curricula for Tibet teaching? And how did you manage to achieve the high response of trainees to distance learning?
Thank you for the question. I will take the second part of the question, how we reach 85% that's the response rate. The 85 response rate came from the we prepare a roadmap for that. We were ready as VTC. We start earlier in the mid of last February. The other things, I think the readiness and attractive people from the teachers and the trainers. And the other things, I think the students, most of them, they were ready to use their technology, especially their mobiles. The other things, I think the partnership between the government and the telecommunication companies that they already provide in way or another free internet. And the other things, the communication strategy we develop or the plan between and the tools we use between the teachers and the trainers and the trainees, and the number of students in each class, they were between like 10 to 20. And the first part of your question, could you please repeat it again?
Yes, I was asking how did you succeed in developing the electronic curricula for Tibet teaching, switching?
Yes, this is one of the things I think we started more than 10 years ago. We established a unit in VTC for e-learning. We hired a consultant. We received like support, technical support from our friends, donors. But from that, I think we developed in a certain way part of our training content. But during COVID-19, we managed through our staff, the technical staff, I think, to move forward. This is, I think, one of the things, the readiness of our technical staff, the support from our staff. But to be frank with you, I think this is an area also we need, I think, a support for the next time to continue our distance learning in Jordan, maybe from CISRIC, from our friends, donors, from our stakeholders, the private sectors. I think this is one of the things it's already, we put it in our agenda to move forward and to continue a distance learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ubaidat, for your answer. We will do our best in supporting any Tibet institution in need in the OIC member countries. Now my question would be to Ms. Omar from Malaysia. I would greatly appreciate if you could tell us more about, you mentioned following flexible assessment methods. So what are these methods? And do you have any plans for revising your curricula or adjusting it due to the current situation? Ms. Omar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Samiha. Okay, in answering the question on flexible assessment methods, what we are suggesting is that we need to move from traditional conventional method, such as having all students sitting in one room together for assessment. We have to shift to online assessment. By saying online or flexible assessment, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, the teachers can have more online assessment by having like quizzes and assessments on the theoretical part of the studies can be done online. It can be done as an open book assessment. And in terms of assessing the students' competencies for their hands-on and practical, they can have assessment in terms of individual or a smaller group, rather than having it in a big group in one lab. They can have it individual assessment. And also, as I mentioned earlier, project paper, project-based product that the students are required to produce during their studies can also be presented online without them having to be present at the center. That is some of the examples that I can give regarding the flexible assessment methods. And it needs the skill. Maybe we can send teachers for training to actually gain the skills of having flexible assessments, and also in designing the methods of giving marks to the students, the marking side of skills regarding these flexible assessments. And regarding this, whether or not we are revising the curricula or adjusting it, for the moment, we know that if we actually do the revising or the change of the curricula is a bit costly, very costly. So what we plan is actually to adjust the delivery of the curriculum. Rather than you deliver it in a conventional way, you can adjust how you deliver, which means you can deliver it online or e-delivery. So that is how we are trying to promote to our TVET centers, teachers or lecturers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Omar. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate your answer. And now I will direct my last question to Turkey. Mr. Çiçek, how easy was sourcing the materials needed for the production of masks, disposable coveralls, and other equipment during the crisis? And also, how was the coordination between different stakeholders ensured in conducting strategic R&D studies during the outbreak of the crisis? I appreciate your brief answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess I have two questions. So I'll start with first. I mean, sourcing of the materials, that means also production, it was easy for us because we already have a big budget for this kind of schools, vet schools. And also our almost 120,000 schools, 1,200 schools are producing materials for all around Turkey as well. So the only thing we need to do, focusing on these materials. So we use our budget firstly for these materials. So it's very easy for us. And already we have a system. So we know all around Turkey, all schools, what they product, what they do, what they sell, what they buy. We have a system, so I can control them every day and everything. Even they produce one more mask. So it was easy for us to, sorting them and know what they're doing, what they're producing, how they, delivering this production to the people. It was easy on the system, interior system actually. If I talk about the second question, RD was like we had a master plan for this RD thing already, but when the pandemic started, we made another master plan for, especially for this kind of RD studies. So we find some pilot schools which they have capacity products, they product the materials and these machines. And we select some pilot schools in different provinces. So it was easy. And this, pilot school was not alone. So they have some stakeholders from sector, they have stakeholders from the health of ministry, they have stakeholders from the governorships, and even from the ministry and schools. So we work all together as a team. So at the end, we try to produce our RD studies are going on. So anything, especially by Ministry of Health, which is very important at the moment, if they ask for anything, we are ready to make RD studies and products at any time.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive answer. I really appreciate it. Due to our time limits, unfortunately, we won't be able to take further questions. And with that, we come to the end of our Q&A session and almost to the end of our webinar. So please allow me to pass the word to Mr. Onur Çağlar, once again, Acting Director of Training and Technical Cooperation at CESRIC, for the wrap-up of the webinar. Thank you all again. Mr. Çağlar, please.
Thank you, Ms. Inan, for moderating the Q&A session, and thank you very much, dear panelists, for your comprehensive answers. It was a very fruitful webinar indeed, with lots of information and takeaways. I really do hope that this knowledge exchange would inspire other TVET centers in the OIC member countries and build bonds of solidarity among them towards achievement of the OIC-VET's strategic roadmap goals. Together, hand in hand, for the improvement of the TVET systems and continuity of the skill development during this global crisis. Although this global crisis caused lots of challenges on various socio-economic fields, we should not forget the great success stories that evolved and the best practices that helped to mitigate the negative effects of the pandemic. During these difficult times, our role as CESRIC, the executing organ of the OIC-VET program, is to share the best practices and examples with our stakeholders and TVET policymakers, and to support TVET centers in enhancing further collaboration with other national vocational centers in the OIC member countries. We learned valuable lessons from our panelists today and their country experiences, whether it was switching their education into online platforms, making agreements with their national telecom operators and internet providers, focusing on production capacity of their TVET centers, and assigning a task force to monitor reopening of educational institutions. Many great examples that could be followed by other TVET centers in the OIC member countries in order to confront the challenges and adjust to the new norms. This webinar would not have been a success without your collaboration. We truly appreciate your participation and designating your time to be with us today. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmetullahi wa barakatuhu, and thank you for watching us. See you all in our next webinar.